The city was alive with its usual chaos, honking cars, bustling crowds, the distant wail of sirens. No one paid attention to the first reports. A man attacking his wife in broad daylight. A paramedic being mauled by a patient. A subway train that arrived at its final stop with every passenger dead. Detective Ray Carter had seen his fair share of violence, but something about the frantic call from dispatch unsettled him. We have reports of multiple assaults in Midtown. Officers are down. Be advised, suspects are highly aggressive. He tightened his grip on the steering wheel and turned on the sirens. Elsewhere, journalist Ava Sinclair stared at the breaking news alert on her phone. Emergency services overwhelmed. She glanced outside the cafe window. Something was happening. A man staggered into the street, blood dripping from his mouth. Another sprinted behind him, knocking him to the ground, biting into his throat like a starving animal. The cafe erupted in screams. Across the city, Dr. Elijah Monroe rushed through the crowded hospital. The ER was in chaos. Patients convulsing, their eyes glassy. "We've got more incoming," a nurse shouted. The doors burst open, dozens of people covered in bites and scratches. And then the first body on the stretcher sat up and lunged at a doctor's throat. At the same time, 17-year-old Jason Reed had just hopped the turnstile at the subway station, running from a shoplifting charge. He planned to lie low at his cousin's place, but the moment he stepped onto the platform, he saw it, a crowd pushing and shoving, trying to flee. The train doors opened, and instead of passengers, the infected poured out, attacking everything in sight. The city erupted. Sirens blared. Police struggled to contain the madness, but the infected didn't go down easily. They didn't respond to warnings. They didn't feel pain. And worst of all, they spread their sickness through a single bite. Ray arrived at the chaos in Midtown. His radio crackled, "We've got officers down. They just keep getting back up." His gun was drawn before he even stepped out of the car. A man covered in blood turned toward him. "Freeze!" Ray shouted. The man lunged. A single shot to the chest did nothing. Ray barely managed to shove him away before a second one tackled him from behind. He struggled, watching in horror as a fellow officer was torn apart. Ava ran for her life, barely escaping the cafe as more of the infected flooded the streets. She ducked into an alleyway, hands shaking as she fumbled with her phone to record. This isn't a riot. This isn't a terrorist attack. These people, they aren't human anymore. Dr. Monroe barricaded himself inside an office, his mind racing. He had seen the virus spreading in real time, faster than anything he'd ever studied. The infection wasn't killing people, it was transforming them. Jason, heart pounding, ran for the exit, but the station was swarmed. His only option was up, to the streets, to the unknown. As the city descended into chaos, the survivors' paths were about to collide. Because there was nowhere left to run or hide. The night sky was filled with smoke and sirens, the glow of distant fires reflecting off the glass windows of abandoned skyscrapers. The city, once an unstoppable force of modern civilization, was crumbling under an infection that spread faster than any government response could contain. Ray Carter pressed his back against the cold brick wall of an alley, his breath ragged, his police radio hissing with frantic voices. "They're everywhere. The whole district is gone, ARGH. The National Guard has been overrun. Do not, repeat, do not engage. God help us." Ray gritted his teeth, gripping his pistol. It had taken 4 shots to put down the last infected that came at him, and he only had a handful of bullets left. He peeked around the corner. The streets were littered with bodies, some twitching, others moving with unnatural, jerky motions. A couple of civilians ran in the distance, but they wouldn't last long. He needed to find a defensible location before the city completely collapsed. Midtown, Ava Sinclair. Ava's hands trembled as she locked herself inside an abandoned pharmacy. She had barely made it out of the alleyway alive. Her camera shook as she whispered into it. "This is Ava Sinclair, reporting from Midtown, if anyone is still watching. The city is gone. The infected, if that's what they are everywhere. I don't know how long I can stay safe, but I have to keep recording. She peeked out through the cracked window. The once busy street was a war zone. Civilians ran, screamed, and fell under the weight of the undead. A police car crashed into a fire hydrant, water spraying high into the air. A man in a business suit banged on the pharmacy door, begging for help, but Ava couldn't risk it. Then she saw something worse. The infected weren't just biting people anymore. They were starting to move in groups, swarming survivors, cutting off escape routes. Some were faster, stronger. It was as if they were learning. She turned away from the window. She needed to find a weapon. General Hospital, Dr. Elijah Monroe. The hospital had become a slaughterhouse. Dr. Monroe pressed his palm against the bloodied operating table, trying to steady himself. A security guard, infected and foaming at the mouth, lay at his feet, his skull caved in by a fire extinguisher. Monroe's breath came in sharp gasps. He had never killed a man before. Focus. The virus, whatever it was rewriting the human body at an impossible speed. Patients who had been alive just minutes ago were now attacking nurses. The infection spread through bites, yes, but was that the only way? A groan echoed from the hallway. The hospital was no longer safe. He needed to get out before the entire place turned into a death trap. Downtown subway, Jason Reed. Jason sprinted up the stairs, 2 steps at a time. His lungs burned, his legs ached, but he didn't dare stop. Behind him, the subway station was filled with the dead. He had seen people get torn apart. He had seen things no 17-year-old should ever see. Reaching the street, he stumbled into a scene of pure horror. Fires. Car crashes. Bodies. And then, gunfire. A police officer, eyes sharp, stood in the middle of the street, taking careful shots at the advancing undead. Jason hesitated. He had been running from the cops just hours ago. But this? This was different. Kid, the officer, Ray Carter, shouted. Get over here. Jason didn't need to be told twice. A city in collapse. Across the city, pockets of survivors tried to fight back. Police barricades fell within minutes. The military, deployed too late, was overwhelmed at the bridges and tunnels. There was no evacuation plan. No safe zone. People begged for help, but no one was coming. The fall of the city had begun. And for those still alive, survival was the only thing that mattered. The city was no longer a city. It was a graveyard. Ray Carter led Jason through the burning streets, dodging overturned cars and bodies that twitched with unnatural life. Every few feet, another infected lunged at them, forcing Ray to use his precious few bullets. The boy was quick, following Ray's orders without hesitation. Smart kid, Ray thought. We can't keep running forever, Jason panted. Ray scanned the area. The streets were getting worse, infected moving in larger groups, blocking every open space. But then he spotted something, the Westgate Mall. Its reinforced security doors and multiple floors made it a strong temporary shelter. Follow me, Ray ordered. They sprinted toward the mall entrance, shoving through a broken side door and slamming it shut behind them. The sounds of chaos outside faded, replaced by eerie silence. They weren't alone. Inside the mall, the survivors gather. Ava Sinclair had been hiding inside a sporting goods store when she heard the door slam. She gripped the baseball bat she had taken from the shelves and crept toward the sound. In another part of the mall, Dr. Monroe had also taken refuge, treating a wounded man who had barely escaped the infected. He knew supplies were limited, and the mall was only a temporary solution. Their paths collided in the food court. Ray, Jason, Ava, Monroe, and a handful of other survivors stared at each other, weapons drawn, eyes filled with distrust. Who the hell are you? Ava asked, her bat ready to swing. Detective Ray Carter. This is Jason. Ava narrowed her eyes. And you just happened to come in here? Yeah, we figured we'd go shopping, Ray said dryly. It's safe for now, but not for long. We need to fortify. Monroe stepped forward. We need food, water, and weapons. This place has supplies, but we don't know how many infected are inside. Then we stick together, Jason said. The decision was made. But trust was fragile, and fear made people dangerous. The first attack. As the group searched the mall, they discovered a terrifying truth: some infected had made it inside. A blood-curdling scream echoed from one of the department stores. A survivor, a middle-aged woman, was being ripped apart by an infected security guard. Ray fired his last bullet, putting the creature down. Panic set in. Monroe grabbed Ava. Did she get bitten? The woman's breathing was shallow. She clutched her arm, hiding the wound. Ava's stomach dropped. She had seen this before. The infection spread fast. She's turning, someone whispered. We can't risk it, another said. The woman sobbed. Please, don't. Ray tightened his grip on his empty gun. Jason clenched his fists. Ava looked away. Then someone in the group made the decision for them. A shotgun blast rang through the mall. The woman fell silent. The survivors had killed their own. And in that moment, something became clear: the undead weren't the only monsters inside the mall. The stench of gunpowder and blood lingered in the air. The woman's lifeless body slumped against the cold tile floor, a pool of crimson spreading beneath her. No one spoke. No one moved. Ray Carter clenched his jaw. He had seen executions before, but never like this. Never of an innocent person who was just unlucky enough to get bitten. Ava's hands trembled as she lowered her bat. Jason swallowed hard, his mind racing with the realization: if you got bitten, you were as good as dead. The man who pulled the trigger, a burly ex-con named Harris, chambered another round in his shotgun. I did what had to be done, he growled. We can't afford to keep the infected around. Anyone gets bit, we put him down. No second chances. Monroe stepped forward, his voice sharp. We don't even know how long it takes to turn. We could've. She was dead the second she got bit, Harris interrupted. He glanced around the group. Anyone got a problem with that? Silence. Ray's gut twisted. The real danger wasn't just outside anymore. It was inside too. The plan. The infected were getting into the mall. That much was clear. If they stayed, it was only a matter of time before they were trapped inside a tomb. Ray turned to the others. We need to get out of here before we all end up like her. He nodded toward the dead woman. Ava crossed her arms. And go where? The city's crawling with those things. Monroe adjusted his glasses. The hospital had a research facility. If we can get there, I might be able to figure out more about the infection, maybe even a way to slow it down. Jason looked skeptical. That's a big maybe. It's better than waiting to die here, Ray said. Ava sighed. So how do we get out? Jason suddenly spoke up. The loading docks. Everyone turned to him. Jason shrugged. I worked here last summer. The docks lead to a service tunnel that runs under the mall. If it's clear, we might be able to get outside without running into a horde. It was their best shot. Ray nodded. We move in 5 minutes. Grab anything useful. Nowhere left to hide. The group crept through the darkened halls of the mall, past shattered glass cases and abandoned storefronts. Every shadow felt alive. Every distant groan sent a chill down their spines. Then, footsteps. Not human. The infected. A group of them shambled around the corner, their milky eyes locking onto the survivors. For a second, there was nothing but silence. Then the creatures charged. Run! Ray shouted. They sprinted toward the loading docks, the undead snarling at their heels. Jason led the way, weaving through the maze of storage rooms. Harris turned and fired, blowing a hole through an infected's chest. But more kept coming. Monroe tripped, crashing onto the concrete floor. An infected lunged at him, its rotting hands clawing for his throat. Ava swung her bat. Crack. The creature's skull caved in. She grabbed Monroe and pulled him to his feet. Finally, they reached the loading dock doors. Jason fumbled with the chains securing them shut. "They're locked," he gasped. The infected were getting closer. Ray grabbed a crowbar. "Stand back." With a grunt, he pried the doors open. Fresh air hit them like a slap. They were free, almost. Beyond the dock was a fenced-off alley. And beyond that? The city. Burning. Screaming. Crawling with the dead. Nowhere left to run. Nowhere left to hide. The survivors burst out of the mall's loading dock, their lungs burning from the sprint. The air outside was thick with smoke and the stench of decay. A siren wailed in the distance, but no help was coming. Jason's heart pounded as he scanned the alley. "We need to move. Now." Ray Carter took the lead, his pistol raised. "Stay close. Stick together." Ava adjusted the strap of her backpack, gripping her blood-streaked bat. "Where exactly are we going?" Monroe wiped sweat from his forehead. "The hospital. If there's any chance of understanding this infection, we need to get there." Harris snorted. "We should be looking for a way out of this damn city, not running into the fire." Ray shot him a glare. "And where exactly do you think is safe? The highways are gone. The military's overrun. The only way we get through this is if we stop thinking like scared rats and start fighting back." Harris smirked. "You want to fight back? Fine. But we're not all making it out of this." Jason swallowed hard. This guy was dangerous. Ava looked at Ray. "So, which way?" Ray took a deep breath. "Through the streets." It was suicide. But they had no choice. The streets of hell. The group moved cautiously through the ruined city. Fires raged in buildings. Abandoned cars blocked the roads. And everywhere, the infected. Bodies twitched in the gutters. Others staggered in groups, their hollow eyes scanning for movement. Jason nearly tripped over a corpse. It had been freshly killed, gunshot wounds to the chest. Then its eyes snapped open. "Look out!" Monroe yelled. The thing lunged, knocking Jason onto the pavement. Ray didn't hesitate. BLAM. A single shot to the head. The infected went limp. Jason scrambled up, his breathing erratic. They're not staying dead. Monroe knelt by the body. The gunshot wound in its chest was at least an hour old. They're reanimating, even without being bitten. Ava's blood ran cold. That means anyone who dies comes back, Monroe finished. A new horror settled over the group. The infection wasn't just spreading through bites. Death itself was enough. And in a city where the bodies were piling up by the second, that meant they were surrounded by time bombs. A race against time. Ray took charge. "Move fast. No stopping." They darted through back streets, avoiding the worst of the hordes. But the city was a maze of destruction. Every turn brought new nightmares, bodies hanging from windows, abandoned evacuation buses with blood-streaked windows, distant gunshots followed by screams that suddenly stopped. Then, trouble. At an intersection, a horde blocked their path. Too many to fight. Jason spotted a fire escape. "Up there!" They scrambled up the metal stairs, reaching the rooftop of an old office building. Below, the infected swarmed the streets. They weren't safe. But at least, for now, they had a moment to breathe. Ava wiped sweat from her forehead. "Okay. We're alive. Now what?" Ray pointed toward the city skyline. The hospital loomed in the distance, its rooftop emergency lights flickering. "That's our destination," he said. "We go rooftop to rooftop until we get closer." Monroe exhaled. "Smart. Keeps us off the streets." Harris crossed his arms. "And what if we get stuck?" What if there's no way down? Ray glanced over the edge. Below, the dead were waiting. Then we better not get stuck. A city of the dead. As the group moved across the rooftops, Jason looked out at the city. The skyline was burning. Helicopters were going down. And in the distance, the infection was spreading past the city limits. His stomach dropped. This isn't just about us, he whispered. The whole world is ending. No one had an answer. Because deep down, they all knew he was right. The rooftop creaked beneath their feet as the group moved cautiously across the city skyline. The streets below were a writhing sea of the dead, their guttural moans echoing off the buildings. The infection had consumed everything. Ray Carter kept his eyes on the path ahead. The hospital was still a few blocks away, but the rooftops weren't as connected as he had hoped. If they couldn't find a way down safely, they'd be trapped up here with no escape. Jason wiped sweat from his brow. We're running out of rooftops. Monroe nodded grimly. We need a way down before we hit a dead end. Ava scanned the buildings ahead. Then she pointed. There. The old parking garage. If we climb down, we might be able to get through it. Ray hesitated. The garage was dark, too many blind spots. But what other choice did they have? All right, he said. Let's move. The descent into darkness. The group climbed down a fire escape, dropping onto the parking garage's upper level. The stench of gasoline and decay filled the air. Abandoned cars sat in eerie silence, some with doors hanging open, others smeared with blood. Harris pumped his shotgun. Stay sharp. This place is a damn tomb. As they moved deeper, every sound echoed: footsteps, the clink of shell casings in Ray's pockets, the distant scraping of something moving in the shadows. Then, a thud. Jason froze. What was that? Ava whispered, We're not alone. The sound came again. A slow, dragging noise from the lower level. Then a growl. Ray raised his pistol. Move. Now. The survivors hurried toward the exit ramp, but the second they stepped onto it, a swarm of infected burst from the shadows. Ambush. The creatures rushed forward, their eyes glowing in the dim light. They weren't just shambling corpses, they were fast. Go! Ray shouted. Jason dove between two cars as a monstrous figure lunged at him. Monroe swung a tire iron, knocking another back. Harris fired a shotgun, the blast echoing through the garage. But the gunfire only made it worse. More infected emerged, drawn to the sound. Ray grabbed Ava's wrist. Up the cars! Climb! The group scrambled onto the hoods of abandoned vehicles, jumping from car to car like stepping stones. The undead clawed at their heels. Jason reached the far side of the garage first. He spotted an opening, a smashed-out window leading to a fire escape. This way, he yelled. One by one, they leaped through the window, landing on the fire escape's rusted metal. But as Harris climbed through last, something grabbed him. A rotting hand clamped around his ankle, yanking him back. He screamed, thrashing as the infected swarmed him. Ray turned, raising his gun. Help me! Harris shrieked. Ray hesitated. Harris had been a problem since the beginning. A threat to the group. But leaving him meant condemning him to a fate worse than death. Ava grabbed Ray's arm. We have to go. Harris's screams turned to gurgling. The infected tore into him, their teeth sinking deep. Ray clenched his jaw, and turned away. The group rushed down the fire escape as the sounds of tearing flesh faded behind them. The streets are worse. They hit the ground running. The hospital was just ahead, its emergency lights flickering. But as they neared the entrance, Monroe suddenly stopped. His face went pale. My God. They followed his gaze. The hospital was surrounded. Hundreds of infected clogged the entrance, clawing at the glass doors. Inside, people banged against the windows, screaming for help. But the doors were barricaded from within. They locked themselves in, Jason whispered. Trapped. Ava shook her head. There's no way in. Ray cursed under his breath. The one place they had hoped to find answers was already lost. Monroe looked at the others. Then we need a new plan. Jason stared at the hopeless scene before them, the weight of reality crushing him. Nowhere was safe. Nowhere left to run. Nowhere left to hide. The hospital was a fortress of the dead. Hundreds of infected clawed at the glass entrance, their bloodied fingers smearing the doors as they pressed forward, desperate for the scent of the living. Inside, terrified survivors pounded on the barricaded doors, screaming for help that would never come. Ray Carter scanned the chaos, his mind racing. They had spent hours trying to reach this place, only to find it was already lost. Jason swallowed hard. So, what now? Ava clenched her fists. We can't just turn back. We need supplies. Weapons. Anything. Monroe adjusted his glasses. If there's still power, the hospital might have security rooms. We can use them to find another way in. Ray nodded. Then we go around. Find a back entrance. But we move fast. The streets aren't safe. No one argued. Because they all knew nowhere was safe. Back door into hell. Sticking to the shadows, they moved around the hospital's perimeter. The moans of the undead were everywhere, a never-ending chorus of death. Then, Jason spotted something. There. He pointed. A side entrance. The metal door was cracked open, a blood-stained handprint smeared across it. It led to the basement level. Ray exhaled. Better than nothing. Carefully, they slipped inside. The door creaked as it shut behind them, sealing them in darkness. Inside the madness. The air was thick with rot. The emergency lights flickered weakly, casting eerie red glows on the tiled walls. Stay close, Ray whispered. They moved down the hallway, past overturned gurneys and blood-soaked sheets. The deeper they went, the worse it got. Then, Monroe stopped. He pointed at a door labeled morgue. Ava shuddered. You've got to be kidding me. Monroe's face was grim. If this outbreak started in hospitals, then the first cases would have been here. Jason backed away. Which means... Before he could finish, something banged from inside the morgue. Ava's breath hitched. Tell me that was the wind. The banging got louder. Ray aimed his gun. Move. Now. They sprinted down the hall, but the noise had already drawn attention. A blood-curdling shriek echoed from the darkness. Then, they came. Nightmare unleashed. From the end of the corridor, doors burst open. A wave of undead in hospital gowns lunged forward, eyes hollow, jaws snapping. Some were still attached to 4 drips, dragging medical equipment behind them. Jason tripped over a corpse. Monroe grabbed his arm, yanking him up just in time. Ray fired, blam. One creature went down, but more kept coming. Go! Upstairs! Ray shouted. They ran, weaving through the maze of hallways. The stairwell was just ahead. But as Ava reached the door, it swung open. A doctor in blood-soaked scrubs stood there, eyes wild. He pointed a scalpel at them. Stay back. Ray raised his hands. We're not infected. The doctor's hands trembled. You can't be here. You'll bring them. Jason gasped, they're already here. The doctor's eyes widened. Then, a pair of rotting arms grabbed him from behind. The doctor screamed as teeth tore into his neck, his blood splattering the walls. Ava didn't hesitate, she swung her bat, cracking the infected's skull. Ray shoved the dying doctor aside. Go! Now! They rushed up the stairs, the undead howling behind them. The control room. Bursting onto the second floor, they slammed the door shut behind them. The pounding of the dead followed, shaking the walls. Monroe caught his breath. That was too close. Jason wiped his face. That guy, he was still alive. We could have helped him. Ray exhaled. There's no saving people anymore, kid. Ava turned toward a nearby door marked security room. This is it. Inside, computer monitors flickered with grainy security footage of the hospital. The first floor was completely overrun. But then, Monroe spotted something. The rooftop. Look. They all stared at the screen. On the roof, a group of survivors was signaling for help. Jason's heart raced. They're still alive. Ray's eyes narrowed. Then let's hope they stay that way. Because if the undead got to them first, there would be no one left to save. The rooftop survivors were running out of time. On the security monitors, the group could see them desperately waving for help, for figures on the hospital's highest level, surrounded by hundreds of the undead clawing at the stairwell doors. Ray Carter clenched his jaw. We have to get up there. Now. Ava tightened her grip on her bat. How? That stairwell is a death trap. Monroe studied the hospital layout on the security screens. There's another way. He pointed at a service elevator shaft on the map. If we can pry the doors open, we can climb up. Jason's stomach twisted. That's a big if. Ray checked his ammo. It's our only shot. No one argued. Because there was nothing left to argue about. They moved. Climbing toward hope. Reaching the elevator shaft was easier than expected. Too easy. The doors were jammed, forcing Ray and Monroe to pry them open with a crowbar. Inside, the elevator car was stuck 2 floors below. That meant one thing, they had to climb. Jason peered into the dark abyss. If I fall, I'd rather you guys shoot me before the zombies get me. Ava patted his shoulder. Noted. One by one, they climbed the maintenance ladder. The metal rungs groaned under their weight. Below them, distant echoes of the undead shuffled through the hospital halls. Halfway up, Monroe slipped. His foot scraped against the metal, clang. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Then, snarling. Jason looked down. His blood ran cold. Below them, infected poured into the shaft, their rotting hands reaching up, climbing the walls like animals. Faster. Ray yelled. Monroe scrambled up, his breath ragged. The undead were closing in. Ava reached the rooftop exit first. She shoved the door open, sunlight flooding in. Come on. Ray helped Monroe up, then Jason. But before Ray could pull himself through, a hand grabbed his ankle. A rotting, bony grip. Ray gritted his teeth, kicking hard. The infected screeched but wouldn't let go. Ava reacted instantly. Crack. Her bat came down, shattering the creature's skull. Ray hauled himself onto the roof as the dead swarmed the elevator shaft beneath him. He barely had time to breathe before hearing gunfire. The last battle. The rooftop survivors were fighting for their lives. A middle-aged man with a rifle fired at the stairwell door, where the barricade was about to give. A young woman reloaded a pistol with shaking hands. Another man swung a fire axe, ready for the worst. A fourth survivor, a little boy, clutched his mother's leg, terrified. Ray sprinted toward them. We're getting you out of here. The man with the rifle turned. Who the hell are you? Jason ducked as a bullet whizzed past his head. Whoa! We're not the enemy. Ava stepped forward. You either come with us, or you stay here and die. Before the man could respond, the barricade shattered. The horde poured in. The rooftop exploded into chaos. Gunfire. Screaming. Blood. Ray fired his pistol until it was empty. Jason grabbed a metal pipe and swung wildly. Monroe pulled the little boy behind him, shielding him. Ava fought like hell, her bat smashing skulls, but there were too many. Then, a miracle. A helicopter. The last flight out. A military chopper swooped in from the east, its rotors slicing through the smoke-filled sky. The pilot's voice crackled over a speaker. Get to the edge. Now. A rope ladder dropped. their way out. Ray grabbed the little boy first, shoving him up. The woman followed, then the man with the rifle. Jason climbed next, then Monroe. Ava grabbed onto the ladder, looking back at Ray. "Come on," she shouted. Ray turned to help, but an infected tackled him. The creature's teeth snapped inches from his throat. Ray grunted, pushing against its decayed flesh. His hand found a broken knife on the ground. With his last ounce of strength, he drove the blade into the zombie's skull. The thing went limp. Ray stumbled to his feet, his vision blurring. More were coming. Ava screamed. "Ray!" The chopper was pulling away. The ladder was slipping from reach. Ray ran. Every muscle screamed. Every heartbeat pounded in his ears. And then, he jumped. His fingers grazed the ladder, then gripped tight. Ava caught his arm, pulling him up. The rooftop disappeared beneath them, swallowed by the undead. Nowhere left to run or hide. As the city shrank below, Jason looked back. Everything was gone. The streets were lost. The hospital was lost. The world they knew was lost. Monroe held the little boy close, staring out in silence. Ava leaned against the chopper's side, exhausted. Ray exhaled, staring at the burning horizon. They had survived. For now. But deep down, they all knew the nightmare wasn't over. It was just beginning. The end. For now.